Our call to worship today is a poem in honor of National Poetry Month. We're going to keep that one. Yes, thank you very much. It's called Today by Billy Collins. If ever there were a spring day so perfect, so uplifted by a warm intermittent breeze, that it made you want to throw open all the windows in the house and unlatch the door to the canary's cage. Indeed, rip the little door from its jamb. A day when the cool brick paths and the garden bursting with peonies seemed so etched in sunlight that you felt like taking a hammer to the glass paperweight on the living room end table, releasing the inhabitants from their snow-covered cottage, so they could walk out holding hands and squinting into this larger dome of blue and white. Well, today is just that kind of day. Come, let us worship together. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit to join our voices in our opening hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken.
Please remain standing as Dave and Gail Sanders light our chalice with these words of the Reverend Dr. Julia Corbett Hemeyer. We light this chalice in a celebration of joy, the flickering flame of a candle, a flame that shimmers, that dances, that cheers, the flame that heartens and encourages us in hard times, the welcoming flame of this community.
All right, everyone. This is an interactive story today. It may be familiar to you, but I'm going to ask you that anytime you hear a rhyme, please do a little hop. And it could, if you want to stand, that's fine. If you don't, just a little bump, There we go. This is a dramatic reading of Hop on Pop by Dr. Seuss. It's not the whole thing, just please hear this in that mind frame of the moment, probably long ago, when suddenly the sound and the sound and the sound became a word. That moment, as my son, when he was very little, from another room said, "Mom, I can read!" All right, so here we go. Pup is up. Pup in a cup. Cup on pup. Here's a good one. We are tall. We all are small. We all play ball. Up on a wall. Fall off the wall. We see a bee. Now we see three fish in a tree. Fish in a tree? How can that be? They call him Pat. Pat sat on hat. Pat sat on cat. Pat sat on bat. Don't sit on that. Dad is sad. Very, very sad. He had a bad day. What a day Dad had! What is that thing? That thing can sing! A long, long song. Goodbye thing you sing too long. We like to hop. We like to hop on top of pop. You must not hop on pop. Now we get the complicated ones. Father, mother, sister, brother. That one is my other brother. My brothers read a little bit. Little words like if and it. My father can read big words too, like Constantinople and Timbuktu. What does this say? See me, he, we, pat, pop, pop, he, three, tree, bee, top, hop, stop. Ask me tomorrow, but not today. Thank you for both listening and learning and hopping. And we are done. Please remain seated, not hopping, as we sing our prayer hymn, number 398, in the great hymnal. It is called To See the World. Begin period of prayer and meditation with bubbles. So if you have your little tube of bubbles, this is the time. Yes, we are talking about joy, and I'm sharing some of these kind of silly, fun, happy things with you because we don't remember them sometimes, and especially right now. So what I want you to do is hold on to those bubbles, maybe make sure that you can open them without getting them all over you, because I did that this morning. And bubbles are one of those things, it's again that moment when a child can first actually blow the bubble, because it takes some practice, right? Just the right amount, directing the breath through that tiny hole with the bubbles in it, right? So the bubbles come out instead of just a big blob of whatever. But there's another piece to it, because it requires breath. Sometimes, yes, you could wave the wand like that, and that works okay. But the best bubbles come when you share your breath with that little film of soap. And it occurred to me that in that way, I am sharing a tiny bit of my own spirit, a spiritu, breath, but also spirit, with the universe. So I thought, why not make that a spiritual practice? Because it's both a joy to watch those beautiful shining globes carried away on the wind, but it's also a little bit of me going out to the universe. So I'm going to invite you to do, if you can, 3 breaths, sending out bubbles and a little bit of you into this space. All right, you ready? Here we go. I'm watching your faces from up here too. Apparently you can't blow bubbles unless you smile too. This is good. It's a reminder of those ordinary things in these extraordinary times. You can keep blowing bubbles if you want to, that's fine. But I would invite you a little bit deeper now. Beloveds, let us lift up all those in the world who do indeed find simple joys. Whether it is blowing bubbles or greeting their neighbors or sharing a meal. We lift up those who have a very difficult time just doing those simple things, whether because of poverty or their location in incarceration or detention or in a war zone. We lift up to, on this soon-to-be 10th anniversary of the death of Freddie Gray in the back of a police van in Baltimore. A needless death, a cruel death. And know that those sorts of things still happen today. Needless cruelty. Spirit of life and spirit of love, be with us as we resist those cruelties, big and small. Be with us as we share some bit of ourselves in love that holds all of us. Remind us that no act of kindness is small. And that sharing our breath in a shining globe can also be an act of resistance. We lift up all those in need of a kind word or a kind deed today, whether it's ourselves or someone we haven't met yet. We lift up those who showed up yesterday en masse around this country, probably around the world, to resist. We hold these things in our hearts, in our spirits. Amen. Blessed be. Amen. Amen. In the silence that follows this prayer, you are invited to come forward and light a candle for any joys or concerns you hold in your heart this morning. I light a candle for the joys and concerns of those beloveds joining us virtually. I light a candle for all else that we hold in our hearts and our minds this morning. If your heart is hurting, know that your community is here to help, as am I. Please reach out with any needs.
These, the words of scientist and Native American Robin Wall Kimmerer. Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. And so, in this moment, and with joy, let us do our part. For we too have received much from this wounded world, and it is by returning the gift that we help to heal it as we build and perpetuate our beloved community. For those of you watching the service online, you may contribute to a virtual offering plate or by clicking on the donate button on the church's website. The addresses will be posted in the chat. I invite the ushers to come forward. For all that you give and all that you do for our church and its wider concerns, we give thanks. Essayist and poet Ross Gay shares this memory of joy in his essay, Tomato on Board, from his book, The Book of Delights. What you don't know until you carry a tomato seedling through the airport and onto a plane is that carrying a tomato seedling through the airport and onto a plane will make people smile at you, almost like you're carrying a baby, a quiet baby. I did not know this until today. Carrying my little tomato, about 3 or 4 inches high in its 4-inch plastic starter pot, which my friend Michael gave to me, smirking about how I was going to get it home. Something about this at first felt naughty. Not comparing a tomato to a baby, but carrying a tomato onto a plane. And so I slid the thing into my bag while going through security, which made them pull out the bag for inspection. When the security guy saw that it was a tomato, he smiled and said, "I don't know how to check that. Have a good day." But I quickly realized that one of its stems, which I almost wrote as arms, was broken from the jostling, and it had only 4 of them, so I decided I had better just carry it out in the open. And the shower of love began. We skip a bit here. Before boarding the final leg of my flight, one of the workers said, "Nice tomato," which I didn't think was a come-on. And the flight attendant asked about the tomato at least 5 times, not an exaggeration, every time calling it my tomato. "Where's my tomato? How's my tomato? You didn't lose my tomato, did you?" She even directed me to an open seat in an exit row. "Why don't you guys go sit there and stretch out?" I gathered my things and set the little guy in the window seat so she could look out. When I got my water, I poured some into the little guy's soil. When we got bumpy, I put my hand on the little guy's container, careful not to snap another arm off. And when we landed, and the pilot put the brakes on hard, my arm reflexively went across the seat, holding the little guy in place the way my dad's arm would when he had to brake hard in that car without seatbelts to speak of, in one of my favorite gestures in the Encyclopedia of Human Gestures. And this, a poem, again from Ross Gay. If you find yourself half naked and barefoot in the frosty grass, hearing again the earth's great sonorous moan that says, "You are the air of the now and gone," that says all that you love will turn to dust and will meet you there, do not raise your fist. Do not raise your small voice against it. And do not take cover. Instead, curl your toes into the grass, watch the cloud ascending from your lips, walk through the garden's dormant splendor. Say only, "Thank you. Thank you." I invite you to rise, embody your spirit, to join our voices in hymn number 1010 from the Teal hymnal, "We Give Thanks."
Joy of a good essay or a good poem. I want to share a little bit more from Ross Gay. I really do think he was the inspiration for much of this work today. In the preface to his book, the Book of More Delights, because one book was not enough to contain them all, he writes, I try to remember to point out to them, those are the people who share with him their own delight practices inspired by his first book, to point out to them that my delight practice, my delights were given to me. They've all been given to me. They've all been given to us. And they become more given and more received upon being shared. Which, quiet as it's kept, we seem inclined to do. Share what delights us. Share what we love. I had a very long story about a joy from long ago in my life. And I may share it with you maybe during coffee hour, because I have a new one that I really want to share with you. It was about theology. So there's that. Yes, I'm that person. I've just spent the last 3 days at the UU Congregation of Fairfax in Fairfax, Virginia, at something called SPARC, a Unitarian Universalist theological convocation. And that doesn't really say joy to a lot of people, but oh, was it filled with joy. And some of that was because of people gathering together, and some of them were ministers, and some of them were in formation like me, and some of them were religious educators, also like me, and some of them were congregants who were just interested in this conversation, and some of them were the music people. And it was just a joy to be together and to talk about deep questions, the deep questions about our faith. And we also talked more about the importance of calling Unitarian Universalism not just faith, but religion. All right, we have a religion, we do. It's non-creedal, but it certainly has shape and structure and paths and rituals, right? So let's call ourselves a religion. And some of that is as an act of resistance as well. Because if we are not a religion, at some point it's likely that we could lose those freedoms that being a religion gives us in this country right now. Which is a strange thing to mention as we're talking about joy. But it is a reality. So some of the people who were there are names you may know. I mean, maybe you haven't taken those deep dives into all those names and the theologians amongst our Unitarian Universalist religion, faith, group. But Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker, who wrote a book called The House for Hope, among other things, and a couple of the hymns. Some of her work is now hymns that we sing sometimes. Reverend Carol M. Walker, Kate Walker, Reverend Dr. Kate Walker, Reverend Dr. Nancy McDonald Ladd, who has just recently left her longtime ministry at River Road Unitarian Church in Bethesda, Maryland, and is now working as on the staff of the UUA. All these people who have for years and years dived deep into what Unitarian Universalism theology, or as we came up with yesterday, theologies, more than one, are and what they call us to be and how they call us to be. Our joy was in wrestling with those questions, in disagreeing respectfully, right? In singing, oh my goodness. There were a couple times, even though I love to sing in groups like that, because if you've ever been with a big group of the ministers, they do the harmonies and everything. It's just like, this is a thing that we do. It's joyful. We sing with joy. We danced, which was really fun because we don't often let go, right? We sit carefully and quietly in our seats. Sometimes we hop if we are invited to. But really letting go and dancing with your entire self, that doesn't happen all that often in our spaces. So I'm hoping maybe I'll do that in the future. We'll get a video screen up here, and we'll put some, I don't want to preface it too much because I want you to be surprised. But the joy of really digging into what Unitarian Universalism calls us to both do and how in these times was joy. Because there were ways for everyone to engage, and especially in those deep, the social justice work, the kind of calls to community, to transformation and pluralism and justice and generosity and interdependence and love. And as we said, it's love, not that kind of flowery thing we get around Valentine's Day with pink and frilly and all that. No, this is love with dirt under its fingernails. This is love that is joy shared. This is love like we may have witnessed yesterday if you went to any of the rallies around. And on social media, every picture I've seen of anybody, no matter what their sign said, whether it was a very serious sign, there is joy. There is joy in the midst of all this angst because people were rising together. So enough about a convocation. My own joy. Because I also have been thinking a lot about ordinary joy. Not those big things. You know how we set up expectations, like we're going on vacation to this place and we've planned it for a while, so our expectations of what is going to happen and how we're going to feel are way up here. And then what happens when it rains the whole week? Right? So let's find the ordinary joy in that so that it's not, oh no, that thing happened, now I have to do it again because I didn't get to that spot, right? Ordinary joy. And I turn, as I often do, to Adrienne Marie Brown and her book, their book, Pleasure Activism. And they write this, that true pleasure, and in these three ways, joy, happiness, and satisfaction. You can probably see that progression of there's the satisfaction of blowing a good bubble, and then there's the joy of blowing a lot of them together. Right? There's that. So that difference. True pleasure has been the force that helps us move beyond the constant struggle, that helps us live and generate futures beyond this dystopic present, futures worthy of our miraculous lives. A reminder that it is a reminder, one of the ways that we know we are free, right? And more importantly, that we are always free. It reminds us that even in the dark, we are alive because we can remember joy and satisfactions. I think of it as not as the reward, like I did this thing so now I can have a piece of chocolate, right? You can have the chocolate. If you like chocolate, if you're a caramel person, you can have the caramel. You don't have to earn it. Joy is your right as a human being. And we forget that too. We think we have to get this thing done, we must be productive, and then we can go have fun. What if fun is productive? What if joy is productive? I don't know, I may have to wrestle with that particular sentence. What if joy is productive? That sounds awful. What if joy just is? What if joy is here in the bleakest moments? What happens then? What happens then? C.S. Lewis, author of beloved children's series, The Chronicles of Narnia, which is rereading those on a regular basis is a joy for me. When I first read them, I didn't realize they were kind of an extended allegory about Christianity. I still don't read them that way. I just read them because I love them. So they're a joy. Finding other layers of a beloved story is also a joy. So there's that. But C.S. Lewis wrote a lot of other things too, including a book called Surprised by Joy. And it was written as he worked through grief over the death of his beloved wife. So those moments when everything seemed bleak and impossible, he was indeed surprised by joy. And this is what he wrote. He said, he was talking about an unsatisfied desire which is itself more desirable than any other satisfaction. It seems a little bit like dry toast, but that's, it moves on. So that's what he says. To this feeling he gave a name, joy. And he wrote, it is here a technical term and must be sharply distinguished both from happiness and from pleasure. Joy, in one sense, he wrote, has indeed one characteristic and one only in common with them. The fact that anyone who has experienced it will want it again. This is a radically different way of talking about joy, right? We want that again, we want that again. And sometimes we think of that as on the edge of an addiction, right? That this thing that made you feel this way, oh, I want that some more, I want that some more. Fortunately, joy is not, well, maybe it is addictive. But coming to joy is not, right? It's there. That's the thing. It's always right there, or maybe right there. Where does it live? And happiness and joy are not the same, although we often use them that way, right? I'm happy. That was joy. Do we use joy all that often anymore? We talk about, I'm happy, I feel good, right? But do we say, I'm joyful, I'm filled with joy right now? I thought of that. It seems like joy is one of those things that is deeper. than happy. Happy could be that one thing going on right at this moment, and then we're done with it. Right? Sort of like the blowing the bubbles. That's happy, but it's also a joy sometimes, but it's fleeting, right? And sometimes happiness has an outside influence. Someone can make you feel happy, right? That's someone else. You can be happy within yourself, but sometimes it's a temporary thing. It comes and goes. But joy is deeper than that. Joy, again, resides within us. It is part of who we are. But we need to tap into it, right? Because it can get buried by a lot of other things. A lot of other things. So joy requires attention. And maybe some intention. This is why I turn to Ross Gay frequently, because the books that he's written specifically about delight, as he said, are really attentive to those small things. It was, as he writes in prefaces for both these books, it was a practice. He would write every day for an entire year. And he specifically said he wrote longhand, so it was not typed into the computer, it was on paper. But if you read them, they were attentive to small things. That little tomato plant, you know? And all those little things that he did for that little tomato plant on that flight. That the flight attendant claimed that little plant too. Right? That's mine, it's joyful. Possibly because it's a small plant and we love small, like infant-like things. You know, puppies and kittens are wonderful. I find joy in watching kitten videos right now. But also that shared joy there of people smiling at the tomato plant, because also it's sort of silly to think of carrying a tomato plant with you through the airport. I'm glad he did. But claiming that as a shared joy, a shared delight. Ross writes in a footnote, there's a footnote to delights, I love that. There's footnotes, talking about keeping it quiet, that we have this habit of sharing joy, right? That we share those things that we love in story. And it's kept quiet, and this is why he thinks, because disbelieving in care, he writes, in sharing, in the everyday, banal, precious, luminous potential, and in our face goodness of each other. Disbelief, too, in the fact that we are so often the source of, the tether to each other's delight. That when we disbelieve in each other, we are an easy mark. And he didn't write that, but I think in this case it's an easy mark for despair. When we forget that in each other we can find joy and delight, then we are a mark for despair. I think that's one of the reasons that yesterday and the day before that and the day before that were such a joy to me, being in that room with other people wrestling with questions about our Unitarian Universalist religion, with our faith, with our theologies, was a delight, even when people disagreed. It wasn't scary when they disagreed. It was interesting. Conflict thing is like, oh no, we can't disagree. Yes, we can. It's okay. Because then we go deeper. Joy isn't one of our UU values, although I think it could be. Maybe it should be. Maybe it should be a reminder that we don't have to do this all the time. It doesn't always have to reside. Our faith doesn't always have to reside up here in our heads, that it serves us better when it resides in our hearts, in our bellies, in our feet, in our voices, right? Let it out. Let it out. And how we practice that and how we tap into that, this was a surprise to me, and then again, it wasn't. To practice gratitude. Gratitude as the tap into joy, to release joy. So beginning every morning with a gratitude practice, no matter what is happening, will change you. And it will let you tap into that. Your coffee will taste better when you practice gratitude for it. Because then it leads you to the gratitude for the people who roasted those coffee beans. Gratitude for the people who grew those coffee beans. Gratitude for the people who brought it to you. Gratitude for the sun and the rain that helped that plant grow to bring you that cup that helps you wake up in the morning. And then there's joy. Remind yourself of the joy of your own Unitarian Universalist faith, your own practices, your own theologies, your own Unitarian Universalist community. That is, even when times are tough, filled with joy. Because you are tethered together. I want to close with this blessing from the April Practice Matters packet, because it's out now. And the practice of joy is now the practice of gratitude. That's the spiritual practice to engage with this month. Reverend Sandra Fees wrote this blessing. May you rise in the morning and greet the dawn with a grateful heart. Throughout the day, may you accept the simple gifts that arise: food, shelter, water, sunshine, rain today, with a grateful heart. May you greet others whose paths you cross with that same gratefulness. And when evening comes, may you greet sleep with a grateful heart, a heart of compassion and joy. Amen. And blessed be. And with that, I invite you to rise in joy, body or spirit, and let your light shine as we sing together hymn number 118 in your gray hymnal, This Little Light of Mine. yeah, no, okay. Anyways. All right, and again, because it's National Poetry Month, I'm going to send you out with one more poem. This one by Lee Young Lee, titled From Blossoms. I know it's a little early for this one yet. From blossoms comes this brown paper bag of peaches we bought from the boy at the bend in the road, where we turned toward signs painted peaches. From laden boughs, from hands, from sweet fellowship in the bins, comes nectar at the roadside, succulent peaches we devour, dusty skin and all, comes the familiar dust of summer, dust we eat. Oh, to take what we love inside, to carry within us an orchard, to eat not only the skin, but the shade, not only the sugar, but the days, to hold the fruit in our hands, adore it, then bite into the round jubilance of peach. There are days we live as if death were nowhere. Nowhere in the background, from joy to joy to joy, from wing to wing, from blossom to blossom, to impossible blossom, to sweet, impossible blossom. And joy.